you hear me now? Awesome. Okay, looks like I fixed it. Sorry about that, everyone. Hopefully I'm loud and clear now. All right, good deal. Well, welcome, everyone, to Painting with a Twist. We are off of North Powers Boulevard. We're the East Painting with a Twist studio, so thanks for coming to party with us tonight. My name is Tyler. I will be your painting instructor. They also like to refer to me as the Paint Doctor. And the reason they gave me that sweet nickname is because I can help you fix anything, all right? So if you ever have a little uh-oh moment tonight, a little happy accident, who knows, maybe you're just working away and then your allergies kick in. You're like, achoo, dang it. Whatever it is, you can always leave me a little comment in the chat box below there, and that way I can answer any questions for you. And just because I think I was muted earlier, to reiterate, I cannot hear any of you, but I can see your screens if you enabled them. And but you can all should be able to hear me, but you can leave me comments anytime you have a question in the chat box below there, or you can just say what's up or anything you want to say there. So that's what that's for. Like I said, I'll be here to answer any questions as we go, and I'll be walking you through this painting step by step. If you've never done this before, you don't have to know anything about painting tonight. I got you covered, all right? Go ahead and take a deep breath with me. Let it out slow. There you go. We're just going to get lost in the smushing process tonight. And that's all we're going to do, all right? Just FYI. So we're just going to smush a little paint. We're going to smush that paint real good tonight. And then we'll just see what happens. And you picked an awesome painting to do tonight. This painting is a lot of fun, and it's really easy, I promise. So before we get too far, let's go ahead and go over our supplies real quick to make sure we're all set up and ready to go here. And also, before we even get into the supplies there, I encourage you to have some music playing in the background if you like. We always have music playing in our studio, so we can shake it while we make it, you know what I'm saying? It's always nice to have a little painting music. It just gets you in the painting zone, all right? Music and painting pair like wine and chocolate, you know what I'm saying? So don't be afraid to have a little music playing in the background. As long as you can hear me good, you are golden there. And then also, don't be afraid to have your favorite snack or beverage of choice as you paint tonight. You know, don't be afraid to incorporate that painting with a twist, if you know what I'm saying. We call it liquid inspiration. So don't be afraid to have your favorite liquid inspiration next to you as you paint tonight. So a couple things before we can jump into this. First off, make sure you have a surface to paint on. You can paint on canvas, but you can paint on a lot of different things. Some of us bought kits for tonight. Some of us are doing BYOB supplies. So for my BYOB supplies, and just for future reference, if you already have paint supplies, you can paint on anything. You don't have to necessarily paint on canvas. You can paint on scrap wood, wood planks. You could paint on cardboard. If you got a box there, you can paint on rocks. It's really fun to paint on rocks. If you've ever heard of 719 rocks, so that's another cool thing. So anytime you do one of our virtual classes, know you have a plethora of options. You don't have to always paint on canvas. You can always play around with what you got and be creative. But I'll be painting on a 16 by 20 canvas tonight. Also, make sure you got some painting clothes on, something you don't mind getting a little paint on. Otherwise, if you got something you do mind getting paint on, you could be leaving tonight with your very own brand new painting outfit. So be careful if you don't want a new painting outfit. Otherwise, just wear an old t-shirt or something like that, or a little apron is great. And then let's go over our other supplies here. You'll definitely need a cup of paint water. Make sure you got a cup of paint water to clean your brush. At home, just recycle pickle jars work great. I've got a little painting with a twist cup up here I'll be using. And when you have a cup of paint water, I do recommend, if you are drinking wine tonight, to put your cup of paint water on the opposite side of your little setup there so that you don't accidentally drink your paint water. You'd be surprised how many times we've seen people drink paint water in our studio. So watch what you're drinking tonight, be careful, and acrylic paint is usually non-toxic, so if you do happen to drink paint water on accident or mistake it for your wine, hey, that's okay, you'll be all right, okay? I just don't recommend it, it's not fermented, and it's going to taste very bad. So fair warning. And then let's make sure you've got a paper towel, paint rag is great, something to clean your brush on, you might want a couple of those. And then let's talk about our brushes for tonight. You could get away with probably just 2 brushes. I might use up to 3 brushes here. So let's talk about those brushes real quick. So you'll want one big brush, and if you've never painted with us at Painting with a Twist, we name the brushes. It's more fun that way, and instead of me saying like 1-inch flat brush, we've got a fun little name for it. So the big brush tonight, I'll be calling this one Big Mama. Say, hey, girl. Big Mama is going to be working it for us tonight. So make sure you've got a big flat brush. All right, and you can call it whatever you want, but I'll call it Big Mama tonight. And then you'll also want a medium flat brush, a medium flat one there. Or it could be a medium round brush. Either way will be great there. We'll call our middle brush or our medium brush, we'll call him Slim Jim or Slim Shady tonight. Say, what's poppin', Slim? What's poppin'? And then optional, you don't have to, but if you want, you can have a little bitty brush. This little bitty brush we may only use like one time. So like I said, it's optional. You could get away without needing a little brush. But if you have a little round brush tonight, I'll be naming this brush Little Mama. So say, hey, Little Mama. So those are our brushes for tonight. You can have 2 or 3. Either is good. The first thing I like to do is hold my brushes proudly and think of them as like happy little fish. So take all your brushes and drop them in your cup of water. That's where you want to keep them when you're not using them. If you leave those brushes out on the table, unfortunately, you're going to look down at that table and pretty soon you're going to have a very sad, dry, crusty, dead fish friend. You don't want that. That's a sad night. You don't want that. So when you're done with them, let them hang out under the sea. That's their happy place. And then we'll go over our colors real quick here. Oh, yeah, and as far as the colors go, or our little paint palette here, I usually like to have an extra either paper plate that I'm using for my paint palette that's blank, or a piece of scratch paper, a piece of cardboard. It doesn't hurt to have some little scratch piece next to you where you can mix extra colors, where you can test out brush strokes, and that kind of thing. So I highly recommend having a little tester sheet next to you there, or like I said, just a piece of scratch paper or cardboard, or an empty paper plate. And then we'll go over our colors. You don't have to have all the colors I have here. You can see I've got a little rainbow of colors there. But you'll definitely need black and white. Those are the main 2 colors you'll need there. So definitely have some black and some white. And then besides that, you could get away with having a few less colors. So if you're doing this BYOB supplies, just use what you have on hand. So we can play around with it. For instance, you don't have to have purple. Purple's really not that necessary because I can mix red and blue to make purple. So you could get away with a lot less colors than I've got here on this plate. So besides black and white, I'd recommend a red, a yellow, and maybe a blue there would be great. And that's what all we'll need tonight. And you don't have to have the exact same shades of red, blue as me. We can make it work with whatever we've got on hand there. So don't worry. All right, y'all. It's officially time to get this painting party started. And like I said, it's a painting party, all right? We always like to emphasize that at our studio here. So at home, keep that at the forefront of your mind tonight. That's why at Painting with a Twist, we say this is fun art, not fine art, all right? So let that little phrase simmer on your brain tonight. And every little once in a while, I might say, what's up, my twisters, or party on, twisters. That's your new title tonight. You just didn't realize it. And so when I say that, if you're at home, get a little weird, get a little rowdy. It's just a reminder, we're just here to have fun tonight. So you can give me a little burst of energy from home. Just be like, woohoo, cheers. Or my personal favorite is, caw. So whenever I say twisters, feel free to give me a little burst of energy from home there. And get as weird as you want tonight. Embrace your inner weird. That's what it's all about, all right? And like I said, we're just here to have a good time. So we're going to jump into this. And again, my name is Tyler, or they call me the Paint Doctor. Sometimes they call me Man Bun, for obvious reasons. So if you need some help tonight, leave a little comment in the chat there, and I'm so happy to help you out. All right, y'all. Caw, I see your comment. If you've ever painted with me before, it is good to see you again. Or leave me a little comment if you painted with me before. Say, what's up? All right, y'all, let's go ahead and get this party started. So first off, you need to be loose when you paint. You do not want to be tight. You want to be loose. So spin your wrist for me. Wake up those wrists a little bit. Get them a little loosey-goosey. Shake them out a little bit. Shake them out. Or you can do your best wacky inflatable arm tubman impersonation. That's how you want to paint tonight, okay? So embrace the motion of the ocean. And then before you paint on your surface, it's polite to introduce yourself. So touch your surface and say, hello, canvas, or whatever you're painting on. You could say, I'm going to make you beautiful. I promise. I promise. Or you could just say, I'm a paint show face. I have a small point to this. I'm not just being weird, although I like to do that, okay? I wanted you to notice the texture of your surface here. It's dry, and it's going to act like a dry sponge. So if you have never painted before, pretend you're painting on a dry sponge tonight. And remember what the golden rule of painting is, which is mo paint, mo better, all right? All that means is the more paint you have on your brush, the easier your colors are going to mix and blend. So use a lot of paint on your brush, unless I say otherwise. So let's grab our big brush, Big Mama. Get your biggest brush out there. Tap your big brush on the side of that cup. Give it a good little tap. And then tap it on your paper towel just to take off a little bit of that drippiness. But it's okay to have some moisture on the brush. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. All right, y'all. So we're going to start off by making our brush nice and saucy. Let's dunk the whole brush in some white paint. Let's get some white. So nice and saucy there. Look how much paint I'm putting on the brush. I'm really globbing it on. Remember, saucy is the name of the game there. Cover up those bristles. If you have any bristles showing, that's too many bristles. You got to cover them up. Once you've got white on your whole brush, lots of mayo. Let's dunk the whole brush now in some mustard. Let's get some yellow on there. Get some yellow. And I'm covering up all the white. So we've got mayo, we've got mustard. It's a deli sandwich on a brush. So white and yellow, nice and covered up, nice and globbed on your brush. The more paint, the better. Remember that rule. All right, y'all. So what we're going to do here, I like to use little hand measurements to figure out where we're going to go. Let me show you the little example. I've got it with me over here. So we want to go, you can see that our sky, we've got a little more water than we do sky, a little less sky than water there. So we're going to go about one hand width up from the top there is where we're going to go. One hand width, and we're going to go where our wrist is at. We're going to put a little blob on the side of the canvas. So here's what I'll do. One big hand width. If you have small, little angel baby hands, you can go a little further down. But I'm going to go one hand width from the top, and I'm going to go boop, put a little blob about where my wrist is at there. And you can do that on both sides. You can go across here, or you can just hold your brush across and then go boop. Use those sound effects. Sound effects always help. Very good. Once we've got our little boops on there, we can then turn this into a nice long whoop. So just go whoop all the way across. Let that white and yellow just mix together on the canvas and pull a nice big stripe coming right through the middle there, right through the middle. I'm going to scooch a little closer here. All right. Now, as we're going and we're starting to get a feel for it, how should your paintbrush kind of feel? It should feel like it's kind of melting at this point on your surface. It should feel like butter on hot toast or cream cheese on a bagel, all right? So make sure you're using enough paint. If you have to press down hard, you don't have enough paint on the brush. So use your paints like Paula Deen uses butter, or used to. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's go ahead and grab a little bit more paint on our brush here. I'll get a little more white, not a lot, just a little bit, and then I'll go ahead and get a lot more yellow. So this time, go ahead and dunk it again in white, and then a lot of yellow. You don't have to get as much white this time, but a little bit helps. All right, and so what we want to do here is pull a few brush strokes above our line and below our line, because our water is reflecting, or the sky, I mean, is reflecting into the water there. So each line, we want it to get a little bit shorter. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do about 2 or maybe 3 more brush strokes above this line, and they're all going to get a little shorter. So watch this. So I do one. This one's a little shorter than the last one. Then my next one, a little shorter than that. And then my third one is even shorter than that. And it should create almost like a little arch, like a messy little arch. And that's what we're going for. It's a very squished arch. So that's what we want. About 3 brush strokes, white and yellow, lots of paint on your brush there. Nice and saucy. Nice and saucy. Make it glide. Remember, the more paint you have, the easier it's going to mix, the easier your color is going to blend. And I can never stress that enough. You know, it's a little scary using a lot of paint sometimes. But when we start blending our sky colors, it's going to work way better with a nice wet surface there. If you don't have enough paint on the surface and you try to blend it, it's kind of like putting a drop of water on a water slide and be like, yeah, that's going to work. It's going to be a painful ride, you know. So make sure, again, you're using plenty of paint. It's going to blend so much easier that way. And then let's do the same thing that we do above this line, below the line, but we've got to flip it and reverse it. So I'll show you what I mean. So still white with lots of yellow, nice and saucy. and then I'll do a shorter brush stroke than the one I did in the middle, and then again, shorter and shorter. So there we go. At this point in time, our funky little shape here is like a lemon. It looks like, you can almost see like a squished lemon shape there, or a squished football, or for any Nickelodeon fans from the 90s, Hey Arnold. It's like the shape of his head, the football head there. So that's kind of the shape you're looking for, or like an eyeball shape, an almond. You get the idea. Let me know if you have questions so far. I'm going to look at the chat here. All right. Looking good, my twisters. Woo! You got this. Very good, very good. Okay, so before this yellow and white dry, we need to go ahead and get the next color blended into it. So make sure your surface is nice and wet there on the top and the bottom, and we're going to blend into this color. And I'm going to show you some cool little tricks for blending. There's a lot of tricks for blending there, but I'll show you one of the easiest ones. Now, first off, we want to blend orange into this, and we don't have orange, so we're going to mix up some orange. You can use your extra plate for mixing orange, or you can just use your neighbor's arm, you know. Just kidding. I will say, if you're painting with friends at home, their family at home, painting on your neighbor is encouraged. I'm just kidding. I'll try not to get you in too much trouble. But if you do catch your neighbor really focused, you can always give them a little face painting, you know, or a little arm tattoo. It's a great surprise for later, especially when they get to the bathroom and look in the mirror. All right, y'all. So let's make our next color here. You don't have to clean off your brush. You can keep it a dirty brush. If you want, just wipe it off a little bit on your napkin. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our brush, use it like a shovel, get a big scoop of yellow, drop that onto your extra plate. I'm going to get a big old scoop of yellow. Let's do 2 big scoops of yellow. All right. So I already got a little red on accident, but 2 big scoops of yellow there. 2 big scoops of yellow. And then just get a little half scoop of red. You don't need a lot of red, just a little half scoop. Start with just a little bit. Not even a full scoop there. I'm just going to dunk a corner of my brush in a little ketchup, a little red, and I'll add that to my yellow, and I'll start stirring those together. And make a nice yellowy orange there. A nice fiery orange that you like. And if it doesn't look orange enough, you can always add a little bit more red, but start with less red. You always want a little more yellow than red when you're making that orange. I added a little bit more red to mine, so now mine's getting more of a fiery orange there. And the important thing is just that you like the color that you get. That's the important thing. All right. Once we've got this color here, we're going to start blending into our yellows. So just like we did up top and bottom there, whatever you do up here, you're going to do the same thing below. Start up top, and here's how you want to play this game. You're going to get rid of, about half of your yellow is going to be turning into the fade into that orange, or the blend into that orange there. So I'll start outside of my yellow just a little bit, outside of it like this, and then I slowly start brushing into the yellows. And as I overlap the yellows, that's where that blend starts really happening. And you can leave it as streaky or as blended as you want. The more you brush it, the more it's going to blend. The less you brush it, the more streaky your sunset will be. So don't be afraid to play around with it. It doesn't have to be just like mine. Every sunset is different. It's like when you go outside, the sky is always changing, always rearranging, doing something different. So wrap around your whole lemon football shape there, and you can see I'm going around the whole thing, and we're slowly taking a little bit of that yellow away, and we're overlapping about half of our yellows there. So let your orange and yellow mix, let them meet, let them mix along the edge. Let those colors get to know each other. They want to get to know each other. Let them mix and mingle. Don't make them separate. And you can see I even got some random little splashes of orange in the middle of my sky. Nothing wrong with that. It's good to still have some yellow, but don't be afraid if you get some random little streakiness in there. That's a great thing. If you're trying to blend stuff more, the more you brush along the edge where the yellow and orange touch, the more those edges are going to get fuzzy and blended. The less you brush it, the more streakiness you're going to see in there. So like I said, both look cool. It just depends on the effect you want. If you want it to be a little more streaky, just brush it less. And if you want to have a little more movement, if you want it to feel a little more smooth, you just keep brushing along that edge there, and that will help blend those two colors together. Now let's say you're having trouble blending, and we're going to do a lot of blending on the sky. So I'm going to show you some cool little tricks to help you with that if you are struggling at all. If you're struggling at all. And again, if you have questions, let me know. Leave them in the little chat box there. So let's say you were trying to blend your orange and yellow, and let's say it just didn't work. They're real separate. I'm gonna mess mine up a little bit here. So let's say you've got a spot and it's like really hard line here. I'm gonna do right in the middle. So you can see right here, I just painted that thick orange, and my yellow and orange are not blended along that edge. So here's a really good trick if you're having trouble with this, or if you just want to lightly soften things. Take your brush and rinse it off in the bottom of your cup. You want to paint little circles, make a little whirlpool, lightly rinse your brush. Tap it off a little bit. And again, it's okay if your brush has a little moisture. You just don't want water dripping off the brush, but it's okay if it's a little bit damp. And then you can take a clean brush. Well, there's a little paint still on there. I washed most of it off. But you can take a clean brush where it's got no paint on it, and it can be a little bit wet, and you just dust it. Look at this, right along that edge where I added that thick yellow or thick orange, and I can blend that away now just by taking a clean brush and dusting it. Maybe you're not having trouble blending that. Maybe your issue is you covered up a lot of your yellow and you want more yellow. Well, painting is kind of a ping pong match. It's a little back and forth game, a little give and take. So don't be afraid to rinse the brush, get white and yellow, and you could start in the middle with white and yellow and brush out into the oranges. And that would also help blend those colors a little bit more. So if you're ever having trouble blending, those are some little tips and tricks there to help you out there. We'll play around with that for a second. And as you play around with it, just make sure you don't overstroke it, all right? You're doing great. Let me know if you have questions. And it's okay if you cover up half of that yellow. You just want a little yellow showing in the middle there. Also keep in mind, some of your orange is going to disappear with the next color. So every time you're blending colors, keep in mind, when you blend it into the next color, it's going to take away about half of it. So just like we took away half of our yellow, when we get into the red, it's going to take away about half of that orange. So if you want more orange, you could bring it down even further, and that's up to you. That's up to you. Keep it loose. Keep it streaky. You got this. Just let it flow. Let it go tonight. We're just getting lost in the smushing process. You just keep smushing it like you mean it. Keep smushing it real good. You got this. I believe in you. Let me know if you have questions, though. I will not leave you hanging. So after I've blended my yellow and orange, I'm going to start blending the next color. So for this, I'll definitely want to clean off the brush. Big Mama's been a dirty brush. Get her clean. Paint little circles on the bottom of that cup. Make a little whirlpool. The best way to clean that brush is just paint circles on the bottom of your cup. Just make sure you make contact with the bottom there. I'll show you a little something that happens. Sometimes you'll get a little paint like this where it's hanging out where the metal meets the bristles there. So if that happens after you rinse it, just give it a good wipe off on your paper towel. Give it a second rinse, and that'll take care of that for you. That's just where the paint likes to stick sometimes. All right. Once your brush is nice and clean here, I'm going to be dunking my brush in just red here. Now, if you are using a slightly darker red, my red is not really it's red, but it's technically a magenta red, so it's a little bit lighter than just a pure primary red there. So if you have a slightly darker red and you want to make your red a little bit lighter, don't be afraid to add just a little hint of white if you like, and that will, make it a slightly more pinkish red. But you don't want very much white if you are going to do that. Otherwise, if you're using a magenta red like me and you've got one of those kits, then you can use pure red here. And either way will look good. But just if you want to make it a little lighter, you can. Or maybe, because this is your painting, maybe you want a little bit more of a pinkish red in your sky. You can make it a lighter sunset than I'm going with. So remember, this is your painting at the end of the night. So be as creative as you want. I encourage it. So I'll do the same thing here. I'm going to start with my reds a little bit outside of my oranges on the top and bottom here, wrap it around my shape, and I'm going to overlap those oranges and blend that while that paint's wet. Keeping it very streaky here. I'm going around the whole shape. I won't do as much on the sides, but definitely a lot on the outer edges here. And we'll just play around blending that. Remember those little blending tricks I was telling you. You can take a clean brush and dust it. You can come back with your oranges or yellows and brush out. So use whatever trick works best for you for getting those colors a little more blended. But make sure you use plenty of paint on your brush. Remember, the paint blends much better when you have more on the brush. So I'm going to do that trick I was telling you. I just rinsed my brush real quick there, and now I'm just going to dust along the edge. If you saw my canvas at the very beginning there, and you can still see it on the sides, there was who knows how many other paintings underneath here. We recycle our canvases, so you probably see a lot of like texture on my canvas. That's what that's all about. And my canvas does dry a little faster because of all those other paintings underneath here. So that's another reason I like to go and kind of hydrate it again sometimes with a damp brush to blend it. Works really good. So we're blending our oranges and reds now. And make sure you have plenty of red in between, because what do I mean by in between? We're going to have purple after the red. And the thing is, if you mix purple and orange, your sky is going to turn into some muddy, funky colors you don't want. So make sure you have enough red as a barrier, because when we blend into purple next, you don't want to accidentally get purple into the orange, because it will get muddy, funky colors in that sky, and then we'll have those nice, vibrant colors. So, remember, you're going to cover up about half of that red, so don't be afraid to have a little extra red, knowing some of it's going to get covered up and turn into that blend of the next color there. Let me know if you have questions, y'all. Otherwise, keep smushing it real good. We're just getting lost in those brush strokes. That's what I love about painting. It's very therapeutic, very relaxing. If you don't believe me, I bet everything going on in your brain is going to disappear the more you get lost in those brush strokes. I've had a lot of people, excuse me, compare painting to like meditation, because they're like, it's very relaxing. I really get lost in it, and I forget about everything else going on, So that's the wonderful thing about painting. So let that happen. Let yourself just get lost in those brush strokes. If you've got your favorite music playing in the background, we always like to play music in our studio when we paint, then you can really shake it while you make it, you know what I'm saying? So don't be afraid to have your favorite music playing. As long as you can hear me good, then you're golden, I think painting and music mix very well together, very much like chocolate and red wine almost, or painting and wine. Those also mix well together. If you've got a little wine at home right now that you're enjoying while you're painting tonight, we call it liquid inspiration. So feel free to use that one anytime you want. Any questions as we're going? All right. I hope you're feeling in touch with your inner artist tonight. That's the idea. That's the goal there. I can see some of y'all painting. I can't see everyone's screen. I can only see a few. And it all depends on if you enabled it or not there. But remember, if you have questions, leave them for me in the chat as you're going. Otherwise, you got this. Remember, if you're having trouble blending, clean brush and just dust it with a clean brush. It's really one of the easiest tricks for blending those colors while they are still a little bit wet. If you ever see texture in your brush strokes, meaning like little dots or little holes in the brush strokes, your canvas is giving you a message. He's telling you he's a very thirsty canvas. So that's why you got to keep that brush saucy. Remember, the more paint you have on your brush, the easier it's going to glide, mix, and blend there. And I'll show you what that texture looks like if you ever see it. It's like on the end here when I was starting to run out of paint there. You can see little holes. When you see little holes in the paint, that's just, again, your surface telling you it needs more paint. It's very, very thirsty. Now, we'll go ahead and get into the next color here. We're moving and grooving. So once we've blended our yellows and oranges now into the reds, we can start blending reds into purples. So it's the same process here. Now, if you don't have the paint that we're using, if you got a take-home kit, you've already got purple. If you have a BYOB supplies, then you can mix up purple if you don't have it. And so to mix purple, you'll want to mix red and blue, pretty much equal parts, so 1 scoop of red versus 1 scoop of blue. And you can get different shades of purple depending on how you mix it. So if you mixed a little bit more red than blue, you get a more what I would call grape purple, a little more of like a wine color or plum. If you mix more blue with your red, you're going to get more of a very darker purple or a very periwinkle purple, a very blue purple there, or ultramarine blue would be kind of the name of that kind of a blue purple. So it just depends on how you mix it there and how you like it, and you can always make it lighter by adding a little bit of white to it, okay? Now if you've got a take-home kit, you can grab the purple by itself, and that's what I'm going to start with. Now I will tell you this purple is a little bit thin. The pre-mixed up purple, it's a little bit what I would call transparent. So if you feel like it's too thin and you want to thicken it, you can keep the purple. You can add a little bit of red and a little bit of blue to your brush. And look at that. I've got purple, red on one corner, blue on the other, and you can lightly mix that on your extra plate, and that can thicken that purple up a little bit if it just feels a little thin. And that's what I like to do sometimes. I like to just thicken it with a few other colors, but that's just optional. Once you've got purple, though, the way you like it, and like I said, you can always add white to make it brighter if you want there. Then we'll do the same thing, and there's not a lot of purple in this painting. It gets pretty covered up, so you don't need a lot. Let me even show you on here, on the example one. There's purple in the sky right about here, but it's very subtle, and a lot of it does get covered up, and there's a little purple down here too. So there's not going to be a lot of purple in here, but we'll have a little bit. But hey, if you love purple, you can have more purple in your sky than blue. So if you're like, I love purple, make it rain. That's okay. All right. Once you got your purple, though, again, just like before, start a little bit outside of your red, just a little bit, and then brush into that red and let those colors mix along the edge there. Let them get to know each other. Remember, when you're working with the purple, you got to be a little careful to not go too far past your red, because if you touch the orange and purple, it eventually becomes very, very muddy. So be really careful there to not muddy it up there. Make sure you stay inside the red when you're blending those and don't go too far past it. Same little tricks for blending, and we're wrapping around that shape, still following our funky little squished eyeball shape there, or almond shape. So keep following that shape as you fill this area or blend this area. And again, remember all those little tricks for blending. You can use a clean brush. You can rinse it and start with your red area, and you can brush from the red out into the purple. You can always do a little back and forth game as much as needed there. I might pull a little purple in on the edges here, but not as much as I did with my reds, And again, just try to follow that shape. Try to follow your shape and watch out for the orange. I'm going to blend mine now by just rinsing that brush like I was telling you. And I'm just going to take a clean brush and just dust it a little bit. Where the purple and red blend, you'll get this really nice, almost like a maroon color. So that'll be beautiful. It's like a very plum, maroon purple. And like I said, if your purple is too transparent, you want to thicken it, you can always thicken it with red and blue. That works really good. I do that all the time. Or you can just mix your own purple with red and blue, and that also makes a thicker purple. So, do what works best for you. Like I said before, all that matters is that you like your purple shade that you've got there. And then we'll be blending purple into blue, and then finally blue into black after this. So you got this. We're just moving and grooving. Remember, if you've got music going on in the background, you can shake it while you make it. Just express yourself on that canvas tonight. Wiggle while you work. And if anyone's ever looking for art supplies, we've got our take-home kits now. So if you haven't heard of that, then check that out. It's great, because it is a little hard to find art supplies right now. So if you're looking for art supplies, check out our take-home kits. The cool thing is you can buy a take-home kit with a painting sheet that gives you instructions on how to paint a certain painting that you pick out. Or you can buy a take-home kit for one of our virtual classes like tonight, and then we walk you through it. So it's pretty sweet. So if you ever need supplies, we give you brushes, we give you paints, we give you paper towels, a mixing plate, and a few other goodies, I believe, in that whole package. Obviously, a surface to paint on. So if you're looking for some canvases, I think we also have wood palette options as well. We paint on all kinds of stuff up here. And we are going to start opening up again this month for some classes in the studio as well. Very slowly, very small classes. So check that out. How's it going, everybody? Let me know if you have questions. So far, so good. We're in the painting zone now. So if any of you have ever painted with me before in our studio, leave me a little comment. Leave me a little comment. Let me know if you painted with me before. Last virtual class, I had several people that said they painted with me before, so that was kind of fun to see y'all again. Awesome. Our sunsets are already looking beautiful, y'all, and we still got another color to add, but they're already looking really nice. So well done, well done. We're moving and grooving. Again, if you have questions on the painting, let me know. Yes. You painted with me before. Thank you for leaving me a comment. Welcome back. It's good to see you. I can see your picture there. Awesome. Looking good, y'all. Okay. Very nice. Let's go ahead and start blending into blue when you're ready. No rush. But we do want to catch the purple, before it's too dry there, so we can blend into that blue. So that'll be the last color. And again, let's go ahead and maybe rinse the brush just a little bit. So we'll go ahead and give that brush a little rinse. It doesn't have to be super clean, just a little rinse. And then lastly, I'll be using blue. Now the blue that I'm using is a lighter blue. So if you got the take-home kit, you've got the same blue as me there. And if you are BYOB supplies, you can just add a little white if your blue is a little bit darker than mine. Just put a little bit of white in there. We just want like a very medium shade of blue there. So it's not super light, not super dark. It's just right in the middle. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll start above our purple, and we will blend blue and purple together. And this makes a really nice color on the edge there. And you're probably starting to get really close to the top here like me. You're probably starting to get very close to running out of space. That's okay. We don't need much space left, especially at the top. We'll have more space at the bottom, and that's perfect. So that's what we're going to work on next, blending the blues and purples. And you can always add more purple if you need to. But like I said, there's not a lot of purple in this, not in the online example one. A lot of it gets covered up, and you just see a little hint of it. But it does add a little nice bit of flavor in there, and just helps with that blend. So that's what we'll keep playing around with next. Like I said, I can always come back, add purple if I need to like this, and brush along the edge of the blue and red there. So remember, it's like a little ping pong match, a little back and forth game. Just adjust as needed and rinse the brush as needed if you're going back and forth in between colors there. Still keep trying to follow that funky little shape that we kind of created at the beginning. Remember, we're always just still following that shape. But everyone's going to be a little different. That's the beauty of this. No one's going to do this the same way. It's kind of like, think about some of those famous artists we all know, like Picasso or Van Gogh. If you had Van Gogh and Picasso painting our painting what we're doing tonight, I guarantee you they both would approach it very differently, Van Gogh has those really thick brush strokes where there's a lot of texture, whereas Picasso, he would approach it in a very different way, probably get very funky with it, who knows. So keep that in mind. Have your own style is really the whole point of all that. Don't be afraid to have your own style. We all have our own style of painting without even realizing it. So let that happen, Let those brush strokes just be expressive. Remember what I said. Express yourself on that canvas tonight. You got this. I believe in you. No wrong way to art it. Like I was saying earlier, every time you go outside, that sky is looking different. So let your sky have its own personality. There's no two sunsets that are exactly the same. That's what I love about nature. It's always reminding us how great randomness is. Nature is extremely random. So don't worry about your painting looking like mine. Let it have its own personality. Now you can see I got pretty far out with that blue, and you can go ahead and touch the edges. That's okay. I already touched the edges because we'll cover up some of that with black in just a little bit. In fact, if you want to, you can take this blue all the way out and you can fill in the rest of your canvas if you want to, because we're going to blend that into black anyways. So nothing wrong with that. You know, I might go ahead and do that because I've got some extra blue here. I've already poured the paint. Might as well not waste it. So if you want to, feel free. Like I said, just take this blue all the way up there on the top and bottom, and we'll just fill in the rest of this. Now, we will be blending into this in just a little bit. So again, make sure it's still using lots of paint, still being very saucy with the brush there. So forgiving. You can paint over anything when it's dry. So the first thing you can do if you ever have a little, hold on, sorry. Okay, sorry, it looked like we were having just a little bit of a connection issue for a split second. Every once in a while it does that, but not too often. So again, I love acrylics. They're one of the most forgiving mediums in art because you can fix things so easily. You can paint over stuff so easily. If you've ever used a pencil before, you know, pencils, everyone thinks are the most forgiving medium in art because you're like, you know, I can just erase that pencil, right? Have you ever tried to erase pencil and it won't happen? It's like the harder you erase it, the more it just smudges. I don't know if you've ever had that happen, but I definitely have. It's very frustrating. And then you start erasing that smudge harder and harder. Next thing you know, you're like, and you rip through your piece of paper. That is so frustrating. And then you got to start all over. You got to throw it away, cry a little bit. It's pretty frustrating. So that's why I love painting. That never happens. You can literally paint over a painting just about as many times as you want. Once it's dry, you can paint over any color with acrylics. So it's really, really cool. Here from Idaho Springs. I just saw your comment there. That's awesome. Very cool. That is awesome. I wonder what the furthest person is painting with us tonight. The furthest from our studio. So again, like I was saying, if you got a funky little drip ever, I'll show you a fun way to fix things. Here's a fun little trick. So first off, if this was dry, let's see, it's not quite dry, so I'm just going to smudge it a little. That blue, I just had blue right there. And then I would get a little orange, where I just mix up my yellow with a little red there. Then I go over to the spot where I got it into the orange area. And bam. I don't have to worry about that weird little blue-green smudge in my sky anymore. And a little bit even got into the red there. So I just get a little red then next and go up into that. So that's what I was saying, you know, painting's a little back and forth game. You can always come back to stuff, play around with it, adjust it as needed there. So just a little tip on how you can fix things. So if you ever have a little question about that, let me know. Let me know. Nice. We've got painters from Salida, Colorado as well. I got to do I paint murals, and I did a big aspen tree mural in a condo in Salida. I think that was last summer. It was really, really fun. They had like really tall ceilings. I think it was 13-foot aspen trees is what I painted. So that was fun. I love Salida. It's a beautiful town, really fun place. Thanks for joining us tonight. Nice, Bentonville, Arizona. We've got someone painting with us from Arizona. That's awesome. My great-grandmother was from Arizona. I also love Arizona. It's a really fun place. So cool. Thank you all for joining us tonight. That is awesome. In Nebraska? What? That's so cool. That is amazing. This is awesome. This is why I love these virtual classes. I can paint with y'all from anywhere. This is fantastic. That is way cool. Well, thanks for painting with us in Colorado from Nebraska tonight, y'all. Hope you're having a good time tonight, getting lost in those brush strokes. All right, everybody, let's go ahead and get into the next step here. We want to blend a little bit of black into our sky and our water. So the cool thing is you don't have to clean off your blue because we're just going to be blending into that anyway. So if you still have blue on your brush, it's fine to keep it on there. If you have a lot, just wipe a little bit off on your napkin, on your table, on your neighbor, whatever's closest. And I will just dunk my brush in black now. Dunk it in black. Now, you don't want a lot of black. You just want a little bit. And I'll go ahead and show you it here. Now, if you notice, there's a lot of black down here in the water. Some of this is going to be our mountains reflecting. So we don't want to do that yet. We're just going to follow that shape that we just created and just add a little bit of black around the edges of our whole canvas here. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to be going around the blue here, and I'm going to be just very lightly dusting. Now, here's a fun little thing. I'll show you with your brush, too. Instead of using the full width of your brush, you can actually use the skinnier side of your brush like that, and you can get thinner brush strokes this way. You can see I got a little line there. Let me get a little closer so I can see you a little better. All right. So I can use the edge of my brush. I can make funky little lines coming into my blue a little bit there. But for the most part, I'm just going to barely dust, following that shape, kind of hit the edges of your canvas or surface and just lift off. As I lift off, my brush stroke gets a little more frayed. Don't press down hard at all. Don't press down hard at all. And just very lightly pull a little bit of black into this. And you want the edges of your black to be very messy, very choppy, and they don't have to be very blended. That's the nice thing here. They can be a little bit more streaky. So let that happen. You don't want to cover up all the blue, but you can cover up, like half of it if you want. And we just want to get some nice little streaky, darker tones in the sky here. You might even get kind of a blue-gray. That's perfect. There we go. Hopefully you can see that a little better there. Very messy. More messy, more better. Now, whatever you do up top, do it also below. And see how I'm still following that curve of that. There's a few choppy brush strokes on the edges. Remember, I'm following that shape, so my brush strokes are getting shorter and shorter on the edge here the further up I go. And it was the opposite on the top there. So we'll pull some black. You don't have to do a lot. You can just do a little bit. So up to you how much. There we go. Beautiful. Now, remember, if you're having trouble blending that or you want it to be more blended and less streaky, just rinse that brush again real good. Tap it out again. And just lightly dust it. Just lightly dust it along the edge there. Don't press down hard. Just dust it. Just caress that canvas. So, if you are new to our virtual classes here, I think it's really fun as I work, and I do this anyways when I'm painting at home, anytime I'm painting. It's really fun to take little progress pictures as you go. So don't be afraid to take a little picture as you go to kind of see that painting evolve. It's fun to look back at your progress photos and be like, oh, cool, that's how we started, and kind of see how your painting evolves as you go. The more paint we put on here, the more you're going to see this picture come together. So that's the cool thing about this. So I encourage that. If you do take any pictures tonight of you working and you post anything, or you take a picture of your painting at the end there and you post it, feel free to give us a little shout out. If you're looking for us, we are Twist, Colorado Springs. I'll leave that in the chat there so you can find it. or you can also hashtag #twistathome and we can find you. But we would love to see your work, so anytime you post it, feel free to share it with us on our Facebook, our Google, Instagram, all that good stuff. And if you're looking for us, Twist Colorado Springs is where you can find us, but Twist at Home is the hashtag. So I'll go ahead and put that in a little chat there. Twist Colorado Springs. If you're having a good time with the Paint Doctor, you can even leave me a little shout out on one of our pages there. Say painting with the Paint Doctor tonight. Any questions on blending that black and blue part? Check the chat here. Let me know. Oh, I just saw your comment there, Heather. We're like down the road. That's awesome. You're our neighbors down the road. Thanks for painting with us tonight. Let me know if y'all have questions as y'all are going. Awesome. We've got a pretty big class tonight, and actually we've got about I see 15 screens on my end, which is awesome, but that doesn't even include everyone painting on each screen there. So this is one of the biggest virtual classes we've had so far. So thank y'all for painting with me tonight. This is awesome. Be warned, I will say, painting in general is very addictive. So be warned. Or, I could just say, welcome to your newest healthy addiction. It's a good addiction to have. I love painting. All right. Okay, I don't see any comments, so we shall get into the next phase of our painting here. All right, so we are going to be letting these get a little bit dry before we can do a whole lot else here. So we're going to be taking a short little break, and believe it or not, you have been painting for about an hour now. Isn't that wild? We started at 6, it's almost 7, so time flies when you're getting lost in those brush strokes and having fun. So we'll have a little break time. Painting is a layering process. It's like baking a cake, building a house, lasagna, onions. You get the idea. Anything with layers. So we've got to let this background layer dry, and then we can build more layers on top. That way our colors don't overmix, and they stay nice and vibrant for us. So we're going to have a little drying break here for just a little bit. And on the drying break, this is a good time not only to get your painting dry. If you have a hair dryer, you can use a hair dryer. Just don't hold it one spot. You want to sweep it with a hair dryer. That'll dry it in like 30 seconds. That's the fastest way. If you don't have a hair dryer, acrylic paint dries very quickly, naturally on its own, so no worries there. But I recommend you can always take an extra plate there, just give it a little fan there, flap those wings. And that's a good way to dry it. But most importantly, we're going to have a little 5-minute break here to get them dry. If you're still working, get those final little brush strokes. But at about 7 o'clock, do give yourself a break and, let it get nice and dry. We'll have a little 5-minute break here. Also, during the break is a good time to just kind of stretch your legs, use the restroom, refill your liquid inspiration, all right? If you need a little more inspiration juice, refill that, or get some more snacks, that kind of thing. So we'll have a little 5-minute break here. And if you have questions, of course, leave them in the chat. I'm going to hang out for a second, and then I'm going to mute my mic during the break and go set up some stuff real quick, and then we'll jump back into it. So if you have questions, like I said, let me know. Otherwise, once you finish your beautiful sunset sky there, give yourselves a little pat on the back. Give yourselves a hand, my twisters. Woo! Or caw-caw. Whatever your celebratory sound is tonight. But you got to congratulate yourselves as you go, But, you got to cheer yourself on as you paint, a little bit. So we'll have a little break time to stretch those legs, And this is a good time, too, if you want to post your progress, Give us a little shout out. Also, if anyone's ever interested to see the kind of painting I like to do on my own time there, I'll leave my little Instagram handle in the chat. So feel free to check that out. You can find me on Instagram or on Facebook at Tyler Dixon Murals. I paint murals, and I also paint canvases for like galleries and commission paintings and that kind of stuff. So if you ever want to check out my funky arts, I will leave that on here as well. Something to check out while we're breaking for a little bit here. But again, if you're looking for our studio specifically here, we are the East Colorado Springs studio off of Constitution and Powers, or Twist Colorado Springs is another way to find us. Sweet. All right. So we're just having a little, I'll tell you what we call it at Painting with a Twist when we're drying our paintings. We call it drink and dry time. So have a little drink and dry time. It's very safe. You won't hurt yourself there. And we're all at home, so it's all good. So, a little drink and dry. There we go. Perfect. You got it. She's got a hair dryer. She's ready. Yeah, hair dryers, they'll get this dry in a minute tops, 30 seconds to a minute. That's why I love that. That's what we use too. But use whatever you got on hand. So I will be right back, everybody. I'm going to mute my mic so you won't hear me. So don't worry. Nothing's wrong. I'm just muted. And will be right back. And like I said, we'll have a little 5-minute break here. Refill those drinks. And most importantly, get that canvas dry. I'll put this up here as a little reminder. There we go. All right, y'all. We'll get back into it in just a little bit. And I will be muted for about 5 minutes here, and then I will be right back. Let's do that. That's not dry. I'll put it up here. All right, I'll be right back. Take 5, everybody. What's up, everybody? So we'll get started on our painting again in just a little bit. So yeah, make sure it's mostly dry, and make sure you've got your refill on your drink there if you need to, or some more snacks. And here's one more little thing I have for you to do while we're getting ready to jump back into this. And this is optional, but I'll show you something here. Our sky has stars, and so does the water. So we're going to be splattering stars on here. So much fun. And if you don't want to splatter paint, there's another way to get those stars on there. So we'll be doing this a little bit, but hey, I will give you a little suggestion before we jump back into it. If you have a old brush that's kind of a little bit rough, that works good for this. You can also just use whatever brush you have on hand. Also, what we like to use is an old toothbrush. So if you have an old toothbrush, this can work really good for splattering paint. Otherwise, like I said, your brush works great. And I like to water down paint in another cup. So if you have an extra cup, that was the other thing I'd recommend. So otherwise, you can water down your paint on an extra paint palette, but you don't have to have a different brush. The most important thing is just having a place to water down your paint, whether it's an extra plate or an extra little cup. You don't need a lot of this either. We just need a little bit, just a little bit. So that's what we're going to be doing next. We're going to be splattering some paint once we jump back into this. It's one of my favorite things to do. It's really, really fun. So that's the only extra supplies you might want to grab. Again, just an extra cup or an extra mixing plate for watering down paint. And if you have it, an old toothbrush or just an old scraggly brush. But honestly, whatever brush you have is going to get the job done. I promise. I promise. Ooh, Coffee House music on Spotify. That's a great recommendation. Someone just recommended Coffee House Station on Spotify. That'd be a great one for while you're painting. Very relaxing. Thanks for the recommendation. All right. Okay. All right, y'all. I think it's officially time to party on, my twisters. Caw-caw. Party on, Wayne. You know what to say. All right. So what we want to do now is splatter paint on here. I love splattering paint. It's very satisfying, and it looks really cool. It is a little bit messy, but I can show you how to control it. And you know, if you have someone painting next to you or across from you especially, be careful. Watch out for your neighbor. They will appreciate you not splattering paint on them. So be careful. But here's what you want to do. So like I said, you can use a plate for this. That's fine. Or you can get an extra cup, and that works great too. So what you'll want to do is grab a scoop of white. You don't need a lot of this. Just get one big scoop of white. Either drop that in your extra cup or drop it on your plate, your extra plate, whatever you've got there. And then we're going to water this down. Now, if you're worried that your paint water is too dirty, you can pour it out and get some fresh water, but as long as your paint water is not that dirty, you can use that. Otherwise, you can pour some fresh water in there if you want. You don't need a lot. You just need to water down the paint until it's milky. So if you look at my toothbrush here, see how it's on my plate. But if you're watering it down on your plate, you should be able to tilt it and it should drip. That's my wife's favorite movie. Great choice. We're a big fan of Wayne's World. All right, so now here is what we're going to do. Now, I'll show you a couple methods. So just depending on what you have on hand there. And you can practice on your extra tester sheet there if you need to. But I'll show you first with my toothbrush, And then I'll show you with a paintbrush. So I'll show you both methods here. So if you have a toothbrush, you just dunk it in that watery paint and it's very runny. So you got to tap it off until it stops dripping. This takes a lot of patience because it's going to keep dripping for a while. So I keep tapping. Okay, it's not dripping. We're ready. So then what I would do, and like I said, I'll show you two methods. Then what I would do is I'd wrap my paper towel around the handle. This will keep it from dripping on me. And then you want to hold the toothbrush, if you're using a toothbrush, with the bristles pointing towards the sky. And then all you do is you just very lightly pull back the bristles and fray them. And you can be really close to the canvas. I don't have to be way across here. I can be like an inch away, and I just very lightly pull back the bristles. And you can see how that splatters. Really nice. And I get a cool looking little sky that way. Now I'll show you with a paintbrush next. So if you don't have a toothbrush, no worries. Let's do this with a paintbrush. So for the paintbrush there, I would use your medium brush probably. So rinse that off really good. Rinse it off good. And then again, before you start, I recommend taking a paper towel and roll it around the handle like so. Roll it around the handle. All right. This just helps because since it's so runny, if any of that paint drips down your handle, this will catch the drip and then it doesn't drip on yourself or your neighbor. So just a little trick there. Wrap a paper towel around the handle and then dunk it in your watery paint, your brush. And if you mix it on your plate, you know, you can go to your cup and just tap it off till it stops dripping. You got to tap it off really good. Really, really good. Remember, you got to be really patient here. If you don't tap it off enough, it's going to make drips coming down your canvas. So it's better to start with less watery paint than more. So tap it off really, really good. Really good. I can never stress that enough. And then when you're using a brush for this, you want to hold your brush at an angle with the handle pointing away from the canvas here. So since I'm going towards the canvas, see how it's angled? And the handle's pointing away. That way, if it drips, again, it'll drip away from my canvas and this will catch, the paper towel will catch those drips. But then you just do the same thing. You very lightly pull back the bristles and you lightly fray the brush. You don't want to do too much here. You just go real light, start with less, and you can always do more. And then bam, you can make it rain on that canvas or you can just do a little bit. That's up to you. And that's what my stars look like there. And then I'm also going to have stars in the water. So, because it's reflecting. So I'll start making it rain down here. Watch out for your neighbor. Again, they will appreciate it. And this is so fun. I love it. It's just the most fun thing to do in painting. Very satisfying. And it creates a very natural looking sky, like a very nice natural looking galaxy effect in no time. So satisfying. So have fun with that. Just make it rain on that canvas as much as you want. And you will get your hands a little dirty, but it's already watered down, so it's going to wash off real easy. But hey, it's good to get a little paint on yourself and be one with the paint, as I like to say. So be one with that paint. Ain't nothing wrong with that. And that's all I'm going to do there. So much fun. I'll show you up close. You can see I like to put a lot of stars. It's just really fun. Adds some good movement. It also helps blend your sky. So that's kind of cool. And they can go anywhere. You don't have to avoid the yellow. You can put those stars wherever you want. If you get in the yellow, that's okay. You know? And since we're going to have mountains in the distance, it could be snow instead of stars if you wanted. In fact, if you wanted to feel like it was snowing, then at the end, you could even splatter more on top of everything. And it would feel like there's snow falling down in front of everything. So that's some fun stuff to think about. Remember, this is your painting at the end of the night. So be as creative as you want. If you decide to put the Loch Ness Monster coming out of your, against the lake there, then you can have a Loch Ness Monster, all right? If you need Bigfoot hiding in your mountains, you can have Bigfoot hiding in the mountains. I'm not going to stop you. All right. Very good, very good. All right, y'all. Any questions on the paint splatter? I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. It's one of my favorite things to do in painting. So fun. All right. Very good, very good. Let's move on to the next part here. We're going to keep moving and grooving unless you have questions. And hey, just so you know, if you ever need to come back and revisit a step or play around with something, what they're going to do is at the end of class, it's recording me right now. So at the end of class, they're gonna upload this for just a very limited time, and we only tell the people that are on the virtual class about this. So we're gonna have this uploaded on YouTube for just a couple days, and then they delete it. So that way, if you missed part of the class, or you just want to come back and play around with one of those steps, you can revisit it anytime, which is really nice. So this will be on YouTube later if you need it. So let's talk about the next part here. We're gonna have our letter C reflecting in the water, but it's gonna start in the sky there. But before we can even put that letter C on there, we're gonna make a little line, just a black line, to cut our canvas in half. And that way we know where that letter C is gonna be in relation to those mountains there. So that can help us a little bit. So we're not gonna draw the mountains yet, because you can see the mountains go in front of your letter C. But we are gonna put a little line, a little reference line is what I'm gonna call that, little guide for us. So for our little reference line here, you can use your medium or your smallest brush. Either way is fine. I'm gonna use my medium brush. If you've got a little bitty brush, use your little bitty brush. Little mama. Remember the middle brush, we're calling this one Slim Jim or Slim Shady. Say, what's poppin', Slim? What's poppin'? Or if you're using your little brush, say, hey, little mama. Either brush is great. We're gonna load our brush up with black paint, just pure black. Just pure black paint. I'll show you a little fun trick here. If you flatten out your brush like a pancake, if you're using a flat brush like me, instead of a thick brush stroke like this, you can flip your brush, use the edge of it, and if you don't press down hard, look, I can get a really thin line with my brush if I'm just lightly pressing with the edge of the brush, as opposed to the full width. So if you have a flat brush like me, then that works really good. Try it out. But you gotta be light with your touch. It's the opposite of using pens, pencils, and tablets. So be light. So remember, we have a little more water than sky. So here's what we want to do. We want to make a line that's going to come right through the middle of our yellow there. So again, we started about one hand width down from the bottom, or you can just eyeball it and you can lean back. Lean back. It's much better if you lean back. If you're really close, it gets a little funky. If you lean back, get the full motion of the ocean, it's a lot easier. And you're just going to make a little line going, whoop, cutting right through your sky there. This is a little scary to put a black line cutting right through the middle of the canvas. So if you're feeling a little nervous about right now, take a deep breath, all right? Or just take a sip of some liquid courage and go for it. You've got this, all right? I know it's a little scary. Make sure you don't forget to breathe, okay? Don't hold your breath when you make that line. Keep breathing, all right? You'd be surprised how often people forget to breathe in painting sometimes. I've surprisingly actually seen 2 people pass out on me in a painting class, you know? So keep breathing, all right? Don't pass out on me. Keep that oxygen flowing. It's very relaxing. My wife is fantastic at yoga, and she teaches me stuff, and I have a tendency sometimes when she's teaching me some yoga to forget to breathe, and she has to remind me too. So I completely understand when you get really focused, it happens. So keep breathing, keep breathing. You got this. If it's easier for you, you can even flip your canvas this way and go whoop and cut it down the middle that way. So whatever works for you. But after you've got your line, that's all we're gonna do. We're gonna add more to this later, but right now we just need a little line. It doesn't need to be perfectly straight because you're gonna add reflections coming down from it and mountains on top of it. So no worries if you got a little wiggle in there. I know I do. Don't worry, you can shake it while you make it. That's okay. Let's rinse the brush next. Rinse this brush, get him clean. He's been a dirty brush, get him clean. All right. Now, we're gonna get into our letter C, our Colorado C. Now, if you are, because I know we have some painters in other states there, if you don't want to put the Colorado C, you could always just do the sun, and that would look great. Now, the sun is really light, and if you don't have the letter C, it can kind of disappear. So if you do want to just do this circle sun and you don't want the letter C, you could make like a more of a yellowy orange, where you mix a little yellow with a little red, so it's a little darker, and that will help it show up better. Otherwise, if you're doing it like this example tonight, then we're going to start with a pretty light yellow. So rinse your brush really good, really, really good. And then once you've rinsed it off, we're going to use the medium brush for this. So medium brush, he's been dirty brush, really rinse some good there. Get all that black paint off if you were just using your medium. So I'm gonna keep using Slim Jim, Slim Shady, whatever you're calling him tonight. Medium flat brush. All right. And then what we're gonna do is we want to load it up with some white and yellow. So let's get a little bit of white and a lot of bit of yellow on our brush there, and you can very lightly mix them on your plate if you'd like. A little white and yellow. All right. So once we've mixed up a little white and yellow here, we can start making our sun. Now, the easiest way to make a circle, instead of trying to draw a circle, it's a lot easier to make a dot and slowly grow your dot. Let me show you what I mean here before you get too far there. Let me show you real quick. It'll be maybe a little easier to see on here. So instead of drawing a circle, you make a dot, and I'll show you where to make your dot. You make a dot, and then you slowly spin the brush, and you slowly grow your circle. This can help you control the size of your circle a lot easier, sculpting it from the inside out instead of trying to like draw a circle. So that's my suggestion. That way you can control your circle and the size of it much easier. If you just draw a circle, you can't really shrink, you can't really grow it because you've already drawn the size of it. So remember, we're gonna have mountains in front. So we're gonna go a little above this line here. I like to use my knuckle. This top part of your knuckle from here to here is roughly an inch. So I'll go like 1.5 knuckles above my sky to start. Now, actually, one more thing before you get going there. Notice it's not in the middle. It's off-centered. So it's a little bit to the left. You could make yours in the middle, or you can make it off-centered to the right. That's up to you. It's up to you. So here's what I'll do. I'll go probably like one letter L over, probably about that far over, or one hand width over, and then I'll go 1.5 knuckles up, and I'll put my little blob there. You kind of want that little blob in the orangey red area so you can actually see it. If it's in the yellow, it's going to kind of disappear, So keep that in mind. All right. Now, once you got your dot, remember, we want to slowly grow it. So I press down, and I just very lightly spin my brush. Don't press down hard. And then I've got my circle. And then remember when I was telling you, lean back. If you lean back, get the full motion of the ocean there, you're going to have a lot of an easier time making that circle. If you're really close, like you would be with a pencil or a pen like this, it gets more wonky. So if you kind of hold your brush a little further away from or do it a little more arm's length, use that shoulder. That's going to help you really feel that circle. You got to be the circle. Sculpt that circle. You won with the circle tonight. You got this. All right, and how big do you want that circle? I would say the example one is roughly 1.5 knuckles or 2 knuckles wide. So all the way across, either way. So I'm going to be leaning back here, slowly growing my circle. It's like you're a little race car. And each time you do a lap, you go a little bit wider. And you're zooming around. Slowly sculpt it from the inside out. That way you can control the size. And then if one side gets a little wonky, you can easily just adjust it. Very lightly there. Just white and yellow. If you want it brighter, you can add more white to see it better. Or if you want to go darker, you could make it a little more of an orangey yellow if you want. That's up to you. But it's kind of cool if some of it disappears because we'll bring it back with the red letter C. Or if you're not doing the red letter C, it'll look cool if it disappears anyways, because sometimes you look at sunsets and the base of the sun kind of disappears into that sunset. So nothing wrong with that. But slowly, slowly grow your circle until it's the size you want it. Again, you want it like 1.5 knuckles or 2 knuckles wide all the way across there, roughly. Yours can be a little bigger, a little smaller. Either way is okay. Either way is okay. But remember, grow it slowly, very slowly. So that's roughly the size that I want mine. You could go a little bigger if you want. I kept mine a little smaller. But that's the best bet. You can always grow it as needed there. But don't be afraid to play around with sizing. Once you got the one up top, you want to make the one below. So it's going to be in the same spot, roughly 1 knuckle or 1.5 knuckles below, or you can just eyeball it and put your little dot where you want to start it. Doesn't have to be exact because it's reflecting. So it can get a little more wonky in the reflections there, and that's okay. And one thing one thing to show you also is down here, we're going to have all these lines. So the circle down here is going to get covered up. So don't worry about having a perfect circle down there because we'll cover most of that one up. The same thing, take your time. Don't forget to breathe and slowly grow that circle. Slowly grow it so you can control it. Arm's length there. Your circle in the water can be further down on the canvas if you want. Doesn't have to be exactly the same spot there. And that's what we want to play around with. Remember, this one down here is going to get covered up with a lot of lines, so he doesn't have to be as perfect. And don't worry about having a perfect circle, just get in the ballpark there. In the ballpark. If any of your paint was a little wet and it's starting to come through, you can always give it another little dry, but it's okay to have some transparency because yellow usually is a little bit transparent. And honestly, if you, hopefully, I don't know if you can see it on the screen here, but some of the background color is actually showing through the yellow and the red. You can see little stars showing through, little purple. So it's kind of cool. It can be a little transparent and a little bit glassy looking like that. Nothing wrong with that. It doesn't have to be thick. It's kind of cool if it's a little bit transparent. Nothing wrong with that. Keep breathing, keep breathing. Now, if you're painting with friends at home there, family at home, something that happens when you're doing details like this is you'll look over your neighbor and they'll see a tongue sticking out to one side of the mouth, or you'll see some veins pulsing in their forehead. If you notice these occurrences, you've got a grand opportunity for a paint tattoo. They won't notice, so carpe diem. If they're in the painting zone, little face painting. It's a great surprise for later. All right. I'll try not to get you in too much trouble. Now, once you've got your circles, let's rinse the brush again. We will add our letter C on top. Let's go and add that letter C. Now, for the letter C, you've got a couple options. You can use the same brush you were using. So for the letter C, you can either use your big brush, Big Mama, or you can use your medium, Slim Jim brush. I'll show you something. Big Mama is literally the width of that letter C there. Look at that. It's literally the width. Or if you're using Slim, it's going to be 2 brush strokes with your other brush, the other flat brush. But I'm going to use Big Mama because that's just going to get it in 1 brush stroke. If you're worried about that, you could use the medium brush and do 2 brush strokes. All right, either way is good. But rinse off the brush you want to use and get just red paint. Just red this time. Make sure that brush is nice and saucy. Nice and saucy. And I kind of flatten out my brush. What that means is when I'm loading with paint, I kind of press it down like this and press those bristles together. So glob it on and smooth it out, kind of sculpt the hair of that brush a little bit. And then here's how the red letter C is going to work. So again, you might want to lean back for this. I hold my brush and I'm going to use just the skinny edge of that brush there. You're going to cut out the part you want to see. So first I just take my brush and I stamp a little slanted line. And then I stamp another little slanted line. You can always make your gap a little bigger and then close it in smaller if needed. But then I just pretend my brush is a little race car and it's zooming around the track. The track is the sun. So I just don't press down hard and you just very lightly zoom around that track. You can add more paint to the brush when you're feeling like it's not gliding well. Lean back. It really helps if you lean back when you do this. And again, don't forget to breathe. And you don't have to press down very hard with your brush. You want to be light with those brush strokes. As long as you got enough paint on the brush, it's going to do the work for you. If you don't have enough paint, then you might be having trouble. So make sure you got plenty of paint there. We can bring those lines down as much as we need to create that letter C. Whatever you do up top, do it down below as well. As above, so below. So add that as you're going there. Now, the cool thing is if you get a little yellow and red mixing along the inner edge here, that's not a bad thing because you will get some nice natural little orange shadows inside your sun right along the inner edges. And that's okay. So don't be afraid of that. Remember to keep breathing on this part. This is one of those steps people tend to hold their breath. So keep that oxygen flowing. Remember to lean back. Lean back as you go. And the cool thing is we're going to cover a lot of the letter C on the bottom, remember, with reflections. And then the letter C on the top is also going to get covered up a little bit with our mountains. So if there's a spot that's bugging you, you can purposefully overlap it with some mountains or reflections, and bada bing, bada boom, it's all fixed. That's the nice thing about that layering process. You can always layer things over other things as needed to fix stuff, adjust things, and that kind of thing. So don't be afraid of that. And that's it for the letter C. That's it. I'm gonna go grab an extra canvas. I will be right back. I like to demo stuff. We're gonna add mountains next. I love painting mountains. They're so much fun. But I want to show you some tips and tricks on mountains there. So as you're working on that C, leave me a comment if you have any questions. I will be right back. I'm just gonna grab an extra canvas here. If you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, keep flowing and going. You got this, Twisters. Woo! All right. Sweet. Okay, let's talk about those mountains. It's about, let's see, it's got 7:30. And all we have left on our painting, we still got a good 30 minutes here. All we got left is the mountains and the reflections. So I'll go ahead and show you the example one again. So we've got the mountains we're gonna add. They've got little highlights on them. And then just the water ripples at the bottom is all we have left on our painting tonight. But I wanna make sure you have plenty of time for your mountains there. And the mountains are really fun. Don't let mountains intimidate you. They're really, really fun. They're really easy, I promise. I'm gonna show you some great tricks for mountains here. But the important thing when you make mountains, this is number one, okay? When you make mountains, you don't wanna have any straight lines. Isn't that a bit of relief? No straight lines needed when you make mountains. In fact, if you make straight lines when you make mountains, they honestly look unnatural. So that's the nice thing when we get into this next step is you don't have to worry about any more straight lines, or as I call them, sober lines. So it's all good. Okay, so let's talk about those mountains here. I will teach you how to become one with the mountain. All right, so I'm just gonna demo on this canvas some things, and then we'll go back to the example one there. So real quick, I want to show you what not to do with mountains and then what you want to do with mountains here. The reason I like to show you what not to do, which sounds funny, is because I see a lot of people do this, and I've been teaching painting for about 6 years now, so I've seen a lot. And anyway, so this is what I see happen with mountains a lot of times. So I want to show you what not to do, and then I want to show you what you want to do. So first off, don't make straight lines. Again, what the straight lines look like when you make them all perfect and you're making those mountains. I'll draw my little mountain line here. It's like this. It's like wah, 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 wah. You got to make those sound effects. But see how stiff and unnatural that looks? These just look like a chevron pattern. So you don't want a chevron pattern for your mountains. Remember, we're painting the Rocky Mountains. We must emphasize the rockiness. They named them that for a reason. Otherwise, they would have named them the perfectly straight triangular mountains. So make sure we emphasize the rockiness. Also, don't make your mountains turn into a heart monitor. This is what this looks like. It's when your mountains are like, beep, beep. Those mountains, they're barely surviving. So don't do that. That's what you don't want to do. So I'm going to cross those out. Don't do that. Don't do that. Here's what you want to do. When you make mountains, you want to make lumpy, bumpy, funky triangles. So those are the 3 points you got to keep in mind. Lumpy, bumpy, and funky, okay? So here's how they work. They're very wide triangles. So when I say wide triangles, it's like this, not like the heart monitor, which I did there. So it's very wide. So here's how they look. I'll draw some mountains for you now that look natural. So you shake it while you make it, you get real jittery, and you make wide triangles there. Some can be taller, some can be shorter, some can be a little wider, some a little smaller there. But see how that looks very natural as opposed to these down here. They just don't look right, okay? So you gotta shake it while you make it, you gotta wiggle while you work, and you gotta make wide, lumpy, bumpy, funky triangles. So that's the name of the game here. And I'll go ahead and show you again on the example, and then I'll set you free. Now, if you have a tester plate, you can test some mountains out on your tester plate before you start going onto the canvas. Here is another thing I see happen a lot with mountains. A lot of times I see people make them way too big at first. Start them small because you can always make them taller if you want. But we painted this beautiful sky. We don't want to cover up all of that beautiful sky. So notice on the example one here, the mountains are taller on the sides. And then in the middle, they dip down into just like very little rolling hills. Okay. So it almost makes like a very big happy face. If I drew a line on top of that, it would make like a little happy face. So that's the name of the game. Tall mountains on the edges and then slightly smaller ones in the middle. Don't make any mountains the same. Each mountain should have its own little personality there. And you don't have to put your mountains exactly where I'm putting them. You can have more peaks than me, less peaks. That is up to you. But you can watch me first if you want. So I'm going to start on the left side here. I'll make my biggest mountain. I'll start wiggling up here. Make one of my taller peaks. And then I start shaking it down here. And making more little triangles. And then I get real small in the middle there. And then I'll start working my way back up. And we can start getting some taller ones going now. But wiggle while you work, shake it while you make it. That's the name of the game. And I can always come back and mess with these a little more. I can come back and add more, make them a little taller, or add more rocks if they get too perfectly straight. You can come back and add more little wiggles in there. Once we get the mountains drawn the way we want them, then we want to fill them in. Fill them in. Make sure you use lots of paint when you fill them in, because we're going to add highlights, and the highlights, we want to add the highlights while the paint is wet. So make sure you got plenty of paint on there once you draw them out. Remember, start small. You can slowly grow them, and it's up to you how much you want to cover up your letter C or not cover up your letter C. You know, that's up to you. Have it come up real far into it or just a little bit. I like to overlap things a lot. I think it's really fun. Adds lots of depth. Nothing wrong with that. Remember, keep breathing. You one with the mountains there. You got this. But no two mountains are the same. So the more wiggles, the more bumps, the more lumps, the better. Lumpy, bumpy, and funky. And I love the mountains because they really start bringing this painting together. It starts really separating the water from the sky, and we can see that separation really nice now. Like I said, it's up to you how much you want to cover up that letter C. You can cover it up a lot or just a little bit. If there's a part you don't like, it's so easy to just cover it up, and bam, fixes that thing that was bothering you. And remember, they don't have to be exactly the same. I painted this example over here, and you can see on this one, my mountains don't cover up my letter C as much. I'm painting this one right now, and I covered up a little bit more because I thought that would be fun. So, like I said, it's up to you how you want it. Everyone's going to be a little different. Give each little mountain peak its own little personality. And if you have questions, let me know. And you can always hold if your camera is on, you can always hold your painting up to the camera if you have a question, and you can point to it, type out your question there, and then I can really help you fix anything. Remember, they call me the paint doctor. There is a reason for that. So if you need all about. Once we've got our mountain peaks on there, we're going to go ahead and add a little bit more to the water. Oh, looks like my internet. Oh, okay, there we go. I had a little blip. Sometimes I have a little message comes up. Sometimes there's just a little short blip, but it seems to be going good. But hey, if I ever cut out and you missed some steps, let me know. Let me know. So after we've got the mountain peaks, we do want to add the highlights on those before they get too dry. So we'll go ahead and start playing around with that. So the highlights on the mountains are really fun and they happen really quick. They happen really quick. They're just quick brush strokes. So make sure your mountains are wet with paint. Remember, if the paint is not wet and you're trying to blend stuff, it's basically like going down a dry water slide or a dry slip and slide. It's going to be a real painful ride. So make sure, again, your mountain paint is still wet. It does dry so fast, those acrylics. So while they're wet, we're going to start adding little ramps, little slopes. I want you to think of it as like a slide. And I'm going to show you up close. So they're like little slides coming down, little ramps. So you can kind of see that little curve. Now notice in the middle, they change direction. So everything on the left side is having a little ramp coming down on the right side of it. Then everything on the other side, the right side, has little ramps sweeping down the left side. So when you get past the halfway point, you start sweeping the opposite side there. But I'll show you how it works. So let's look at my canvas and I'll show you what to do here. You don't have to clean off your brush. Here, I'm gonna get a little closer too so we can see this really good when I'm doing these mountains here. Okay, so you don't have to clean off your brush. You can keep it a dirty brush. Keep the black paint on there. And if you have a lot of black, just wipe it off a little bit. Then dunk your brush in some white. You don't need a ton of paint. Dunk it in some white, and you can very lightly tap it if you want, so it makes kind of a lighter gray, but don't really fully mix it, okay? So here's what my brush looks like. I still have black. I put a little white on there. I kind of tapped it a little bit, and it turns like a very light gray. You don't need a ton for this. And so what I do is I go to the peak, and I pull a little ramp coming down from the peak. Now, all your lines don't have to be in the same spot, so I'll show you what I mean. So I started the peak here, and I just pull a little ramp curving down. And then my next one can go a little further in, or I could come up this way. I could go a little further back the other way, and I just very lightly sweep, very lightly sweep. Some lines longer, some shorter. It should catch all the wet paint you got on there and lightly mix. And so I'm just gonna pull little ramps like this, making different little shades of gray, just very lightly sweeping. If I keep brushing it, it's just gonna all turn into one solid shade of gray. So the less you brush it, the more you're gonna get these streaky tones and all these different little shades of gray. You don't need 50 shades of gray, just a couple. So keep it loose, keep it streaky. If you get more white and gray than you want, you can always wipe off the brush, get black, and take a little bit away. So remember, everything on this side, I'm sweeping this direction. Now, once I get past the middle, I'm gonna start sweeping the opposite way for the rest of these little peaks. And it's up to you how many little ramps you want coming down from your peaks there. And some parts can be brighter, some parts can be darker. It's really up to you. Remember, this is your little mountain range. So all those little peaks and all these little ramps, they live wherever you say they live. Just imagine yourself sliding down that mountain. Imagine yourself skiing down it if you're a skier or a snowboarder. Just really feel the shape of that mountain. Feel that triangle as you're sweeping down there. Really feel it. And very streaky. Remember, you don't want to keep brushing it because eventually it just blends into one solid color. And the idea is to get lots of little shades in there. But you can always break up the space if you need to by adding black. Like I said, you can always take some black and cut some things out if you need to. You can, just like that, I could come back with black and take a little bit out from this highlight on this side if I wanted, and that kind of thing. So, or you could take black and sweep it up if you got too much white. That's another way to take it off of that side and just kind of get more shades. So if it's all turned into one solid shade there, or it looks too perfect, mess it up a little bit more. But again, don't brush it too much because you're trying to get different little shades of gray in there. And the more you brush it, the more it's all just going to be one solid color. You won't get all those cool little variations. So that's all we want to do there. Let me know if you have questions on those fun little peaks. I love painting mountains. One of my favorite things to paint. So fun. You can be really messy. Remember, these are rocky mountains. The jitterier, the better. And that's all I'm going to do there. And hey, let's say you've got like some extra space here. I've got a lot of empty space on this mountain here. I could add another little peak. It doesn't have to even be at the top. I could come over here and just add a few little sweeping brush strokes over here and just imply maybe there's another little peak down over in here, another little valley. So if you've got a little empty space, you can even add stuff like that, which is really fun. More little rolling hills or textures in there. but it's messy. It's very messy. Let me show you mine really close. I want you to really see how messy these brush strokes are. See that big mountain peak? Look how messy he is up close. Very messy there. So the messier you go, the better. And see how the lines, they're not all starting in the same spot there. When you sweep down that edge, some start up further, some down further. The ends of these are all choppy. So really be weird with it. Lumpy, bumpy funkiness. That's the name of the game. Looking good. This is going to make our mountains really pop. It's going to give them that little something, something. It's going to give them that last little, you know, that they need. Let's scooch back a little. All right. We're doing good, y'all. Once you got your mountain peaks on there, don't be afraid to give yourself a little pat on the back. A little, woo, good job, my twisters. Caw-caw. Whatever sound effect inspires you tonight. Any questions on the mountain peaks? Those are really fun. I love making those. Don't overthink your mountains there. Remember, the messier, the better. And take pictures on your phone. This is an artist trick we do all the time. If you take a little picture on your phone, it can help you see your painting from a fresh perspective. Because when we're really close, we're looking at every little brush stroke and we're thinking too much there. When you take a little step back, you can really see the effect of all those brush strokes. That's why I wanted to show you mine up close so you can see how messy those brush strokes truly are when you're really close to it. But when it's further away, you get that full effect. So that's an artist trick. Artists take pictures as they go to help kind of see their work from that fresh perspective. Really, really is a helpful tool. So I recommend trying that out as you go. Especially if you're feeling weird about something, it can help you figure out what you want to adjust and all that kind of good stuff. Otherwise, we just have a little bit left, y'all. You're doing fantastic. So what we've got left is the reflections, and we've got a good 15 minutes of class left here. So let's talk about that. Now, for the reflections, you might want to use your smallest brush, Little Mama. We haven't used this brush, so if, and again, you don't have to, if you don't have a small brush, don't worry about it, because I'll show you the second option. Like I was demoing before, if you use the edge of your brush and you pancake your brush, I'll show you what I mean again here while we're getting ready there. If I take my brush and I flip it like a little pancake, press those bristles together. Again, I can use the edge of my brush if I don't press down very hard and get these really thin brush strokes. So if you're using a flat brush and you don't have a little one, this is the trick. Light brush strokes, using just the edge of the brush. Don't press down hard. This will help you get those lines. Otherwise, just use your Little Mama brush, works great too. If you haven't used your little brush yet, we got to show her some love. So bust out your little brush and say, hey, Little Mama. So what we'll do now with our Little Mama brush is we'll load it with black paint. Or if you're using slim, load it with black paint. Now, when you switch to a round brush as opposed to those flat brushes, the best way to load it is to let your brush take a nap in the paint like it's sleeping there and just slightly spin the brush. Just roll it a little bit. This helps a lot. And I'll tell you too, if your paint's ever a little thick, sometimes the black paint gets a little thick, I'll add a little drop of water from my cup of paint water into my black sometimes to thin it out. So if it's a little too thick, try that out. It works really good. But stir the water in thorough if you do decide to water it down, and that works great. All right, y'all. So what we're going to do is we're going to go below our mountain peaks and add reflections. Let me show you on this example one here. So we're going to go underneath these mountain peaks. And if it's a really tall mountain, it's going to have a big reflection. If it's really small, short mountain, it's not going to have much. So like this big one right here, if I was going underneath him, I would start dusting about as long as the mountain and then shorter, 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 shorter. It's like a little zigzag tornado. Same thing if I did one for this little guy, let me get a little more paint over here. If I did one for this little guy, since he's really short, I would do a really small one. Just a little zigzag. So they're like little horizontal tornadoes. That's what I call them. Little zigzag tornadoes. Remember, you can add water to your black paint if it's a little goopy there. And we don't want to do a lot of this, just a little bit. So my big tall mountain peaks here, I'll start there. I go underneath it. I make a line about as long as it. And then I start going real quick. I start going shorter, 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 and make my little reflection. Zigzag tornado there. And leave lots of little gaps in your line. There's nothing wrong with those gaps. Those gaps are great.
And you can bring this, if you decide you want to make it bigger, I can come back and I could extend it just like that. Come back and I can make this a little longer. But I was just like the mountains, start them shorter. And if you want to make them longer, you can make them longer. That's up to you. And for the really little mountains, you really don't want to do much, especially in the middle there. But definitely let some of this overlap your letter C. It'll look really cool. It'll make it really feel like it's in the water. So I'm going to definitely have one really coming down into this a little bit. Be really messy. This is water, so we want to feel the ripples of that water. Really feel the ripples of the water there. If you, like I said, sound effects, like, they really do help. So if you want to make little sound effects while you paint, you can be like, whoosh, feel that water moving. If it's a little more of a windy day, then you might have more wiggles in that water. That's okay. That's okay. Let's start with less. We can always add more as we want there. Looking good. You got this. I'm not going to do much on my little ones. I might just barely do something there. Not much at all. But the tall ones on the edges, those get some really nice reflections happening. Remember, when your paint's getting a little goopy, add water. Add drops of water to it there. A little water really does help. If you add water to your black paint, remember to stir it really good, nice and thorough, so it's not drippy or runny. And then roll your brush in that paint. If you roll the brush, if you're using a round brush like me, it just helps your brush keep the shape. All right, looking good, y'all, looking good. We're almost there. Once we get our final highlights, that's gonna make a huge difference on this painting. Right now, it's getting a little darker, then we're gonna brighten it back up again after this. So you got this, no worries. It's all about those layers. The more we layer, the more you're gonna see come together. And then one more fun thing if you want to. And again, I painted both examples here, but if you want to, on the edges, you can connect your black. So if you've got a little gap, like I've got a little gaps on mine here, I might add a little bit more on the edges, just add some more little ripples. And those don't have to be connected to the mountains. You can see there's some longer ripples in the water there. So if you want to, underneath those, just on the edges, you can pull a few longer ripples. And that's what I like to do. So I'll show you again here. So again, in between this space here, where I've got a little space, I might pull in just some longer shadow lines into my painting there. They don't have to get too far into my reflection, but it can just kind of frame it really nicely. And don't make all the lines the same length, some longer, some shorter. If you have questions about that, let me know. I won't leave you hanging. And that just kind of helps connect everything and really make those colors pop. So like I said, if you want to, you can pull some random shadow lines, connecting the black on the sides, just the sides there. If you're feeling really brave and you want to bring a few little shadow lines into anywhere else, you can have a few. You wouldn't want a lot, but you could have a few little ripples coming down. I could have just like a random one in the middle here even. Just like a little darker line, You can do a lot of that, but you can have a little bit. Just dust it. Don't press down hard. Just dust that canvas. Just caress it. But by adding these darker shadow lines, that kind of breaks up the space just a little more on the sides. And again, kind of blends things a little bit. It's up to you how much of that you want. At the end of the day, this is your painting. Make it your own. That's why I said if you want the Loch Ness Monster coming out of the water there, hey, you go for it. I will not stop you. Be as creative as you're feeling tonight. Remember, any questions, leave them for me in the chat there. I'm happy to help you out as we're going. I'm going to check that chat out and see if anyone has any questions as we're working here. Otherwise, pretty soon I'll show you some of the last few steps here that's going to really bring it all together. I love the little highlights at the end. Highlights always give it that last little something it needs, that little, you know what I'm saying? Remember to have a few longer lines coming out on these edges, just because it does help break up the space of the water a little bit. So if anything feels like too perfect, by pulling some longer lines in there, it really helps a lot. So what do we have left? Just the highlights in the water. This is gonna really make a difference and really help with that reflected quality of the water. That's one of my favorite things about this painting is that nice little water shimmer. So we'll keep using the same brush, or again, if you're using the flat brush, that works great. Both work fantastic. In fact, I might switch to the flat brush down here. Sometimes I like using the flat brush more than the little brush, surprisingly, because I really feel like the edge of that brush works so nicely. So whatever brush you want to use, make sure you rinse off the black really, really good. I'm gonna hold this up close so y'all can see my funky lines there. But rinse off your black really, really good before we add the rest. And I want you all to see how messy all of that is there. See how messy it is? And you can see I have a few little random black lines here and there if you want them. But you gotta want it. Awesome. So once our brush is nice and clean there, remember you just paint circles on the bottom of that cup. Use the medium flat or the little mama. And we're gonna start off with just white paint next, just white. Just pure white. It's not gonna stay pure white, but that's okay. If you're using the flat brush, flatten it out. And be really light with your touch, because you're gonna use just the edge. Otherwise, if you have a tendency to be heavy-handed, use your little mama. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go right at the base of my mountains with my white here, and I'm gonna add a nice ripple right at the base of the mountains. This is gonna really separate those mountains from the water, but you don't wanna make a solid line. You need gaps. So I start over here and I just kind of start going, leaving little gaps as I go. Little gaps. Some of it's gonna turn kind of a light gray, and I just wiggle across the base of my mountains there. Lots of little gaps, lots of little gaps. This is gonna make it look a little more shimmery, and it's gonna help show kind of the water hitting the base of those mountains because it's crashing up against the base of them a little bit there. It's gonna start helping with that shimmery effect. And then we're gonna keep pulling this white into our painting. It's up to you how much you want. And some of it's gonna turn gray, that's okay. So now I'm gonna start going real random. I'm gonna put it pretty much everywhere in the water, anywhere you want. And it's gonna be very random. So now, when you do this, the hardest thing is not making a pattern. So you gotta be random with your lines, some longer, some shorter. So I'm gonna start putting little lines in here. Again, some longer, some shorter. Our brains naturally want to put all these lines in a pattern. So don't let your brain do that. You gotta be so random with it. And you can do a lot or just a little bit. Real streaky here. I'm not gonna do a lot on the letter C because we're gonna add yellows and reds, but you can have a few on the letter C. Doesn't hurt to have a few. And let your brush even run out of paint. The more it runs out of paint, the more you'll get some of these kind of just wispy lines, little streaky things. Don't press down hard. Be very light with your touch. Just graze it. Just caress that canvas. And don't be afraid to get a little gray. If it starts turning too gray for your liking, then maybe rinse the brush. But otherwise, little hints of gray will be totally fine as long as they're pretty light there. We'll just add another little element of shimmeriness to your water there. Shimmeriness, that's a word. But you can see how much the reflections really start, the highlights in the water, the ripples really help create that reflective quality. So it's up to you if you want a lot of these or just a little bit. You can make it rain or just have a couple, you know. It's really up to you. But just don't make a pattern. Some lines way longer, some way shorter, some medium lines, you know. It starts to look like a pattern, break it up by making some longer ones or some shorter shorties. And that'll work really good. There we go. We're getting there, y'all. It's popping now. It's popping now. Looking good. Let me know if you have questions. After this, we're just going to add a few more colors, and we're going to do the same effect. So while I've got white on my brush, I'm going to now add yellow. So once you've got white on there, dunk it in yellow. And we'll mix a little white and yellow together, just like before. And I'm going to start now adding, and if your brush turned gray, you might have to rinse it before you do that. Should have said that a little sooner there. But yeah, if your brush turned gray, rinse it. Otherwise, we're going to use white and yellow, and we're going to add some yellow lines. Now, I like to start my yellow lines coming out from my yellow sun here. So I like to let some of those just kind of lightly overlap my letter C again. And then once I get some of those coming out from the yellow sun, Then I'm just gonna put some random yellow lines, just wherever you want down here. Wherever you want. There's not a right or wrong place for them. They can go wherever you want. You can have just a couple. You can have a lot of those yellow lines. But again, it's just gonna add that nice reflective quality of the water there. Same thing, some lines longer, some shorter. It's all about being random with it. We got some yellows. And like I said, some lines can be a little more ripply than others. If your lines are a little more wiggly than mine, then it's just a windier day. That's okay. So don't be afraid to have a little more movement in there. Nothing wrong with that. And then the last color we're going to use is red, just red. So I'll rinse off my brush for red. Definitely rinse off the brush when you're ready for red. And you can put more colors down here if you want, but I'm just using white, then white and yellow, and finally red. And the red I'm not going to do a lot of. The red is going to start in the red parts of the C, and then you just pull red coming off of your C there. And let some of it go into the yellow, sun, some of it goes into the oranges, and really anything around your red letter C, you can pull little red lines coming off of that to make it more ripply. And that's really the only place I'm going to put red. If you want to put red elsewhere, you could. I mean, just to show you, if you wanted to, we could always splash a little red, anywhere else on here. I'll do a little bit just for fun. And that can help break up that space. Or if you're like, oh, I got more white than I wanted or yellow, you could always try to cover it up a little bit with some reds or really any other color. If you needed to, you could even take some black and cut a little bit away. But that's going to be the last color there. Taking reds and pulling them off of my red letter C there to make that nice and messy. And that's why I told you earlier, don't worry about making this letter C down here too perfect. So you're going to mess it up with all these fun little lines later. And that's the step that I was talking about, this one right here. And like I said, if you want any other colors, this is your painting. So you can always come back, add any more colors, add more whites, whatever color you're feeling there. This is your painting. This is going to be one of the last and final steps on our painting tonight. Unless you're adding Bigfoot or anything else there, or maybe you want to add an alien spacecraft to your sky, you can do that, all right? I won't stop you. But once you get your final little touches there, the last step I always say is signing those beautiful paintings to make it official. After working on this beauty for 2 hours, you want to claim it and say, that's my painting, all right? So if you want to sign these beauties, I usually sign the corner with a little brush. And it depends on how much you want it to show up. If you want it to be kind of hidden, you can make like a gray or a color that's, pretty dark. So I'm going to use a dark gray here, a medium gray, and I'm going to sign right in the corner. So you can sign it anywhere you want. I was initial, so I'll do a little TD for Tyler the Paint Doctor. But actually my last name does start with D, so that just works out very conveniently for me. And again, if you're looking for me on Insta, I'm Tyler Dixon Murals. I put it in the little chat there if you ever want to see my personal art. And when you finish your painting tonight, once you get those final little touches and you decide to post it, definitely give us a little shout out. I would love to see your paintings. And the cool thing is if you tag us, or even if you tag my personal page, I will reshare your paintings and share them with everybody because we love to show off what you've painted with us. So thank y'all for painting with us tonight. I'm gonna hang out for a little bit. It is a few minutes after 8, so I'm gonna hang out for a little bit as we're getting our final little touches. So if you have any questions on your final steps, let me know. But again, once you are finished, take a picture of that beauty, brag about it, and when you brag about it, you tag us, Twist Colorado Springs. You'll find us, and you can also hashtag Twist at Home. Or if you want to tag me in your story or anything like that, it's Tyler Dixon Murals, D-I-X-O-N Murals. So you can find me that way, but I put it in the chat as well there. But I cannot thank y'all so much for painting with me tonight. I had a blast making our Colorado reflections tonight. I really love this painting because I love painting mountains. It's one of my favorite things. So thank y'all for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it, and be warned. This is very addictive, like I was saying before. Or again, welcome to your newest healthy addiction. There you go. But y'all are fantastic. And once you are done with your painting, give yourselves a hand twister. Woo! You did it. You successfully completed a painting. Your canvas is no longer stark white and boring. You brought that canvas to life. Your canvas is feeling fabulous now. It's got its own personality. It's like, thank you so much. So, well done, y'all. Well done. Thanks again for painting with me. And if you had a good time painting with Tyler, the paint doctor, give me a shout out on Facebook or Google or Insta, wherever. Otherwise, my name is Bert, and I definitely was not here at all. I'm just kidding. But thank y'all so much again. And if you want to paint with me again, I'm going to be the exclusive virtual artist at our studio. And again, we are located off of Constitution and North Powers Boulevard. We are the East Colorado Springs Painting with a Twist, if you're looking for us. And we have, I think our next virtual class, I know we have one coming up on Mother's Day. We might have a couple on Mother's Day, actually. So definitely look on our calendar there. And like I said, we're going to be doing more of these virtual classes. If you need paint supplies or a surface, anything like that, remember we have our take-home kits. So order a take-home kit and you get curbside pickup for that. And slowly we're going to start opening up pretty soon for private parties and very small classes. So if you're looking for some good times, check out our calendar online and you can come party and paint with us, all right? But like I said, these virtual classes are really fun. I love this. It's one of my favorite things we're doing right now. Having a blast with it. And I would love to see you in my next class. So I hope to see you there, painting with the paint doctor. But like I said, thank y'all so much. I'm gonna hang out for a few more. And if you have questions, please let me know. Please let me know. Otherwise, y'all have a fantastic night. And I hope I see your paintings later so that I can brag about you and your sweet new artwork. Start thinking about where you want to hang that beauty. But thank y'all so much. And like I said, I'll hang out in case you have any more questions about our painting tonight. Let's see. Get a little closer there. All right. Very good. I'm just going to check out. Oh, nice. Cheers, everyone. Cheers. What's everyone listening to? I'm seeing our comments here. I have 90s. It's amazing for painting. I agree. We have a really good 90s playlist up here. And 90s music is fantastic while you're painting. There's a lot of good genres, but 90s is definitely one of my favorites. Good choice. Good choice. Just saw that. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks again, everyone. Y'all are fantastic. And cheers, my friends. And like I said, I hope to see you in my next class. If you have any more questions, let me know. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. I really enjoy it. I love teaching painting. It's definitely something I'm very passionate about. So thank you for saying that, and thank you for painting with me. Thank you all. Y'all are fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, my friends. Well, I'm going to head out, but I had a wonderful time. I hope y'all did as well. Oh, wait, I see another comment here. Oh, cool. Listening to Evanescence. Got a whole bunch of songs. Love including the newest one. Oh, cool. I'll have to check out their new stuff. I didn't know they had some new music out. Very cool. Awesome. Thanks for the recommendation. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for painting with me tonight. Appreciate it. I like your backdrop, by the way. That's cool. Oh, nice. Looks good, Rebecca. Well done. Heather, that's fantastic. Man, y'all did amazing. Woo. Beautiful. Y'all made me look good tonight. Oh, nice, Joanne. Nice, Maria. Oh, fantastic. And y'all made me look real good tonight. Well done, my twisters. Well done. I'm scrolling so I can see your screens if you enable it there. I think I saw. Oh, beautiful. Oh, that looks fantastic. Wonderful. I love that, Diane. Oh, wow. Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you for showing me. I love seeing these. You too, Joanne. That's fantastic. Awesome. And y'all made me look real good. That's so cool. Oh, beautiful. Nice, Melissa. I like the snow caps. I like those nice little snow caps. That really pops. Beautiful job. Oh, awesome. That looks great. Oh, I like that you did it on a wood board. I love it on a wood board. That's really cool. That is awesome. Yeah, if you get one of our take-home kits, y'all, you can get different surfaces. We have wood boards you can paint on, which are really cool. Really, really fun. Man, amazing job, everybody. All right, my friends. Well, y'all have a fantastic